we're going to make two scripts today, one in the third person character in this case, but you could use a vehicle character or first person, and one that controls the behavior of these pickup objects. They're copies of the same thing, so it works like this. Okay, now quick explanation as to what's going on there in total. Pickup objects are triggered into action by this box, so it makes them easier to get than they would be if they were just the size of the coin that's their basis. And when they are overlapped, it spawns an emitter, which is an explosion effect, and then the actor destroys itself. Now, additional to this, which is going to be in a part 2 video, is the programming that sends the information from the pickup, sends its value into the character script, and a couple of things happen as a result of that. First thing to happen is that value is added to a score, and then that score is checked against the game total, and if we've reached the game total, then the game stops. Obviously you could set up anything else to happen as a result of reaching that score, so it could be that you activate some sort of opening door and allow the player to proceed. Okay, so the first part is going to be the basic thing, how the pickup behaves, and then the second part is going to be sort of integrating the scoring system and showing a bit of results of it as well. Okay, so here is the visual basis of the object. So the viewport for the pickup character is showing that we've got our trigger box, we've got the coin object, we've got a light, point light there, just to give it a bit more whatever, attraction. And then finally you can just see the white sphere of the dummy or root object, which causes some sort of confusion as regards the scaling of the whole thing. Okay, so we've got the script operating on overlap of this box. Oh, and a final thing, built into the components are a rotating movement, which gives you control over roll, pitch and yaw, and I've got the rotating movement to do 180 degrees on 2 axes every second. Okay, and we can simulate that. So that's what that looks like. You'll note, of course, that the whole thing is rotating. The icons for the light don't rotate, but the light is rotating. So if you had a spotlight or point light in there, sorry, it is a point light. If you had a spotlight in there, that would be spinning around as well. Okay, so the rotation just gives it a bit more pickupness. That's what I'll go with. Okay, so let's build this from scratch, but we don't need to spend a lot of time on that. I'm just going to remove these from the world so we can build new ones in. Okay, so the first thing is to identify the object, which I'm going to use this one called smcoin, which I think is just a file I've collected, easy enough to make. A disk or flat cylinder, static mesh is fine. You might want to make a coin that's actually already standing on its edge, as it were, because there are some interesting and not altogether welcome things that happen if you try and rotate the coin in the blueprint and then proceed to put on some sort of movement functions. Okay, so from scratch then we're going to create a new blueprint class. It's an actor, and it's going to go in my content folder. And I'm going to call it pickUp 10. So the key thing about it is not really the nature of its appearance, but actually the value it's going to have. It's going to give us 10 points every time we run over this pickup. Okay, so I'm going to find the little coin, pre-select that, and do a canny thing, which is to open the blueprint from the blueprint menu here, and that should preserve us the static mesh selection that we've already made. There we go. So the coin was the thing that's selected in the content browser. I'm going to change its name. To something suitably bland. One thing again about this coin that I've found is I'm being a bit lazy, and rather than size it up properly in modelling software, I'm just going to boost the scale up. Now, during its life it doesn't undertake or undergo any scale changes, but again, this local scale adding may well become problematic if the code modifies the scale in a unpredicted way. Okay, so there's the coin set in there, and the other things we need a light, point light, which arrives on the scene. Now you may say that the general way this is going to be viewed is sort of just above its reach, so you might want to just raise the light a little bit just so that it gives it more reflection. I've used quite a metallic material on the surface of the coin as well. And finally, we need to add the trigger box, which is here as a box collision. Okay, now at this point it's good to go, but if you did want a bit of fancy movement, let's go for that. Down in the movement section there's rotating, which is the one I'm going to use, and interp too, so you can have it sort of bobbing up and down. What you won't find good to do is to have both, so pick one. Okay, I've done some investigation into this, and the best way of having both is really to use a couple of float tracks in a timeline, and we'll handle it that way. Okay, so I've got the rotating movement. I'm just going to sort that out, and we want 180 degrees in that one and 180 degrees in that one. If the coin was on its edge, probably just have it spinning in one axis, but because the coin rests flat, we don't want to have that possibility where you can see the coin sort of edge on at some point. So that should provide both of the axes that we need. So let's just see if that works. Lovely. Okay, so the light is flashing a bit. The other thing, of course, is there's going to be a shadow cast through the coin, which you may or may not want. So move the light to where you want it most. Okay, quick compile. Okay, so that's the setup done for the pickup. Oh, one more thing. I know we can do this from the event graph. So in the event graph, we can get an event for this trigger box, add event on component begin overlap. Okay, and from that, Now I'm using the starter content, where to be found is a particular emitter setup. You find something that is useful is generally going to be something called explosion, and of course you might want to scale that with a bit of editing off a duplicate. But I'm going to do spawn emitter at location, and I'm going to choose the one called explosion. There's one in the content, not explosion bomb, one in the content examples which is called explosion. That one works pretty much the same way. So spawn emitter at location, we want to provide a location for this. At the moment it's going to give it a location at the 0 point, but in world space, and that won't do at all. So let's get the actor's location. So this pick-up objects, let's get actor location. And then finally we want to destroy actor. Which, even though I've typed it in exactly as it is, wants me to look at that one. Ah, there we go. Too many spaces. So destroy actor. So what this will do is just remove this object, remove itself from the game, from the level. Compile. Okay, so just to recap, when the player character goes into this overlap box, we're going to spawn an emitter at the location that the actor currently has, and then it's going to destroy itself. So whack one of these into the scene and just test it. Oh, let me just check. On component begin overlap, we need to just make sure that we're overlapping the right things. So I'm going to change this currently set to overlap all dynamic. Overlap only pawn. Let's try that one. Fingers crossed. Compile. I'm just going to shut this down. Drop it into the scene if I can find it again. Yeah, I'll pick up 10. Just raise it up a bit. Save because I'm paranoid, and play. There it is. So we should expect it to explode as we. There we go. I was nearer to it than I thought I was. Okay, so that's part one, and what's to come is getting the score from it and using the score to set against an end game total to work out if we've done what we need to in terms of building up our character's point system. It could be health, could be whatever. Okay, so part two to come.